we said in our intro, we are going to discuss together localizing industry and in a specific auto industry. Where are we in this industry, this heavy industry, which can provide or afford the thousands of job opportunities to our youth? We do have a lot of questions and a lot of dreams and ambitions in the same time, and we are very much delighted to have with us live here in the studio engineer Mohamed Shetaa, our automotive expert. Thank you very much for being with us, sir, and a very good morning.
Thank you very much. A very beautiful good morning to you and to all the distinguished viewers of Nile TV.
Thank you, sir. Before going into details, Engineer Shetaa, let me know where are we when it comes to automotive industry? Where's Egypt regarding this heavy industry?
Actually, in the 60s and 70s, we used to have a very lively and a very successful automotive industry. Namely the Nasr company, which was state-owned at that time, and which produced a lot of popular cars like the Fiat 128 and the Fiat
Ramses. And we named some after some of our ancestors.
And the Ramses car, for example, as well. So those cars were very, very popular, and we also used to assemble and actually manufacture trucks and buses as well. And this was and when you watch the old movies, for example, you see all these cars, the old trucks and the
luxurious
old
ones.
Buses and the old cars from Nasr and Fiat and Ramses moving through the streets and roaming through the streets of Cairo and Egypt. And then in the 80s and 90s, we started, the private sector started becoming very popular as well. And of course, the government at that time, they encouraged the private sector to invest, both the local businessmen and the local companies as well as the international. And then we started having the dealerships and the importers of the various international brands starting to operate in Egypt. And then both the government as well as the private sector maybe forgot or did not care a lot about local assembly anymore.
Let's say that they became not interested anymore in this kind of industry.
Because the offers and the variety from the imported cars were much bigger and much more diverse. So the focus was more on the imported cars, and also the consumer wanted to have something new, because as you know, the assembled cars of a Nasr company, there were only like 3 or 4 models. So suddenly you had like a variety of 50 or 60 imported models. So of course the consumer went to these imported cars as well. So we stayed for like maybe almost
2 decades.
30, almost 2 or 3 decades concentrating on imported cars. And then after a while we noticed that other countries like Morocco and South Africa and even Saudi Arabia and Tunisia and Algeria, they started attracting foreign investors who spent billions of dollars in establishing new factories.
How we can attract those billions of dollars to invest in particular in this domain?
This is the key question, actually. Because as you know, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has been focusing very much on attracting the foreign investors and the foreign car companies. He himself, during his visits in Europe, in Korea, in Japan, he met with most of the car companies on his visits, on his official state visits to these countries. And he even met lots of delegations here in Germany as well, like the delegation from Mercedes, for example. He had meetings with many other companies.
With the CEO of the company already.
Exactly. He was not the CEO, but he was from the top management. And we had lots of discussions going on. The problem which most of the car companies face when they come to Egypt and they send their delegations on the ground to start exploring the facilities which they want to establish, they noticed that we do not have the relevant feeding companies who can supply the quality and the quantity of the spare parts and the components needed for such a big factory. So this is the main problem which we have in Egypt, that we do not, over the past 40 years...
And this is the thing we are working on right now?
We are trying. It is extremely difficult because actually during the past 2 or 3 decades, countries like Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, and of course South Africa, and many other countries in our area as well, they were focusing more on attracting the feeding companies and the component companies rather than the automotive companies, which was a smart move, because actually before getting the automotive companies to come invest in your country, you need to have the feeding companies established in your country. So, for example, I'll just give you a short example. 20 years ago, I was at the Automechanica exhibition, which is one of the leading car exhibition for spare parts and components for the feeding industry. And at that time, Egypt had not just a booth, but a hall. It was a small hall, but it was a hall, and there were maybe like 20 or 30 exhibitors at that hall at that time. And fast forward, I was at the Automechanica last year, and we only had like 4 companies there. Actually 6 companies who were registered for this exhibition. 1 didn't get the visa, which is something I'm very surprised that the German embassy actually did not give them a visa.
Weird, a little bit weird.
It's very weird, to be honest. Especially that it's a company, and it's a registered company, and they're exporting and they have a factory. So this was a little bit strange. And then the other 5 companies, they were rather small companies. There were 2 companies, maybe just one which is like a big company, and the other 3 or 4 companies, they were not so big. So this shows you that the numbers of companies participating in international exhibitions has decreased significantly, because actually most of the companies who supply components for the automotive industry, they focus only on the local market. So, and the local market is very small.
Then, sir, what to do? What's our homework?
Our homework is to attract the international feeding and component factories. This is the most important step, and there's no other step aside from this, if you want to attract...
And to benefit or to learn lessons from other countries which already did so before, and now they are moving forward, like as you kindly mentioned, Morocco, South Africa, and other countries.
Absolutely.
But sir, before going into these details, you know, the question is here, should we focus on that, or we should focus on electric vehicles, because this is the future? Or this is something which should go parallel?
I'll give you just a statement of one of the German CEOs, the CEO of BMW, last week at the IAA motor show in Munich. He said their company, they will focus on all 5 different drivetrains. With the 5 different drivetrains, he meant gasoline cars, hybrid cars, electric cars, diesel cars, as well as the REVs. The REVs are the range extended electric vehicles, which are electric vehicles. They have a battery and an electric motor, but the battery is not charged through the electricity of your home, but the battery is charged with a ICE engine, which is a internal combustion engine, the normal gasoline engine. This engine generates electricity, charges the battery, and then the car moves with the electric engine via the battery. So these are the 5 drivetrains which this CEO said his company will continue on using. And actually this is the only thing which makes sense. Because in some markets, for example, the Scandinavian countries in Europe, for example, they're very they're very successful in registering new electric cars. I think one of the countries, if I'm not mistaken, Norway, I think last year they had 99% of the new car registrations were only electric vehicles.
Oh.
So this is a huge success for
Sure.
electric vehicles. But in other markets, for example, if we go, for example, to Egypt, you will see that 99% of the registered cars are still gasoline
Till
cars.
when? I mean, the future, in the near future, I think the whole world is going to go to this because of the lack of fossil fuel, and also regarding the climate change issue. Sustainability
Yes.
here is, I think, in my humble opinion, a key word, if you want to elaborate on this.
You will be surprised that many CEOs, for example, of Porsche, Mercedes, and BMW, they're now asking. They had a summit at the EU last week, and they demanded that the deadlines for banning gasoline engines should be lifted, because they said that the markets, in the key markets like Europe or the United States, for example, they are not very much into electric cars. So, and they said you cannot force certain drivetrains like electric cars, for example, where the market, first of all, is not ready, the consumer is not ready to buy these cars. Maybe the infrastructure is not the best, and in many cases people prefer to have a hybrid car which has both engines, the electric cars as well as the gasoline engine as well. And I personally, I like electric cars, but maybe in Egypt the hybrid cars would be the best solution until we have a infrastructure which is where you have electric car chargers everywhere. The second problem which we will be facing in Egypt probably is the pricing of the fast chargers. They started when they first launched a couple of years ago. They started at 1.5 Egyptian pounds per kilowatt, then they moved to 3 pounds per kilowatt, and just 2 weeks ago they raised it from 3 pounds to almost 6 pounds per kilowatt. So this will make electric cars in Egypt much less attractive. Of course, we need to focus here and mention that this is for the fast charging stations. When you buy an electric car, you need to have a mobile charger at home and focus and rely to 90% or 99% of your charging intervals on your home charger, not on the fast charger. So we have lots of homework to do. I think one of the most important things, we need to grow the fleet, the number of the fleet, the automotive fleet in Egypt. Currently we have around 10 million cars. In order to attract the international component and feeding companies, you need to have at least 20 to 30 million cars registered in a market as big as Egypt, with 100 million people living in Egypt. So maybe one of the reasons why many companies do not come invest in Egypt is because they say the market is too small for cars, because 10 million cars in a 100 million population market is a very low number. So we need to change that very quickly. So how do we change it? How do we raise it from 10 million to 20 or 30 million without costing the government lots of foreign currency? Is very easy. You open step by step the import of used cars, which are much cheaper than new cars. So this will enable you, instead of spending $4 billion US dollars annually for around 100,000 imported cars, you will only spend $2 billion US dollars for 100 or 200,000 used cars. So you will grow your market steadily, and you will even save $2 billion US dollars a year. The second thing is, which is also very important, it will save you lots of money for the spare parts you export.
Very important.
Because like in Germany, for example, many people do not buy new spare parts. They go to the scrap yard and they buy almost new spare parts, for maybe a quarter of the price of the new parts. And it's a flourishing market in Germany, and it creates lots of jobs.
Cars flea market.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Sir, would you please correct me if I'm wrong? I was reading on social media that now we do have Egyptian buses in the UK. True?
Yes, yes. We have a company which is called MCV, which is one of the leading companies in Egypt.
In الشرقية.
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes. And they indeed, I think they sold 70 buses in a deal to several cities in the UK. Of course, compared to other companies abroad, 70 is a very small number, but there's potential to grow. I think back when the Nasr company was assembling buses back in the 60s and 70s, I think they used to assemble, if I recall correctly, around 1,000 buses a year or something like that. This is the number which I heard. So 1,000 buses in the 60s and 70s. We need at least to have 5,000 or 10,000 buses.
But going from 0 to 70?
Yes,
and then we are going to go forward.
Absolutely.
So as you've kindly mentioned, we do have potential.
Definitely. And now the Nasr company is now currently focusing, and they even started with buses as well, with electric buses. So this is a good step. And I think the competition will definitely will raise during the next couple of years. So I assume that we will have many more companies, local companies, getting into the business of assembling buses. So this is definitely, and by the way, this company MCV, they were one of the very few companies actually participating in the IAA exhibition for commercial vehicles in Hanover. So and I saw them there myself. So I was very proud to see an Egyptian company showcasing their products in a big market like Germany. So that was something very good for sure.
Sure. Well, Engineer Mohamed Shetaa, our automotive expert, thank you very much for your input, and have a very
Thank you very much for having me today, and have a wonderful day to you and to the Nile TV viewers.
Likewise, sir. Right after the short break, we are going to return back with more, so stay tuned.